Innovation Smart School Online Expo 2021. Satu klik solusi bisnis fashion. Innovation adalah pameran online internasional yang berfokus pada pengembangan produk ekspor dan peningkatan penjualan produk dalam negeri di industri tekstil dan alas kaki.
Pameran ini dibagi ke dalam 4 kategori: raw material, supporting, ready to wear, dan footwear. Dapatkan berbagai keuntungan di pameran ini. Perluas dan perkuat koneksi bisnis Anda. Temukan brand dan produk Indonesia yang berkualitas. Dapatkan update tren dan market fashion terkini. Dan bangun serta kembangkan skill kamu dalam berbisnis fashion. Jelajahi pameran ini dengan berbagai fitur. Temukan exhibitor yang cocok dengan bisnis Anda melalui B2B matching. Realisasikan transaksi bisnis Anda dengan video conference call. Dapatkan produk lokal yang berkualitas dan murah di diskon hall kami. Tingkatkan kemampuan berbisnis Anda dengan mengikuti talkshow dan workshop bersama narasumber dari brand ternama. Nikmati paduan produk-produk lokal Indonesia dalam fashion show. Semua ini gratis loh, Anda tidak perlu kemana-mana, dijamin aman, cepat, dan nyaman. Tunggu apa lagi? Daftar sekarang!
Masak apa nih?
Buat buka puasa dong.
Mau masak apaan? Digital bisa.
Mau belajar ngaji dulu ah. Belajar ngaji.
Mau belajar ngaji? Digital bisa.
Mau kemana?
Mau tausiah dong.
Mau tausiah dari rumah? Digital bisa.
Saat ada kecoa, HP kreditan dihempas mertua. Ambil hikmahnya. Di Blibli Hikmah Ramadan. Bisa beli yang baru, dapat cashback hingga 1 juta rupiah untuk semua produk. Yuk, Blibli sekarang.
Innovation Smesco Online Expo 2021. Satu klik solusi bisnis fashion. Innovation adalah pameran online internasional yang berfokus pada pengembangan produk ekspor dan peningkatan penjualan produk dalam negeri di industri tekstil dan alas kaki.
Pameran ini dibagi ke dalam 4 kategori: raw material, supporting, ready to wear, dan footwear. Dapatkan berbagai keuntungan di pameran ini. Perluas dan perkuat koneksi bisnis Anda. Temukan brand dan produk Indonesia yang berkualitas. Dapatkan update tren dan market fashion terkini, dan bangun serta kembangkan skill kamu dalam berbisnis fashion. Jelajahi pameran ini dengan berbagai fitur. Temukan exhibitor yang cocok dengan bisnis Anda melalui B2B matching. Realisasikan transaksi bisnis Anda dengan video conference call. Dapatkan produk lokal yang berkualitas dan murah di diskon hall kami. Tingkatkan kemampuan berbisnis Anda dengan mengikuti talkshow dan workshop bersama narasumber dari brand ternama. Nikmati paduan produk-produk lokal Indonesia dalam fashion show. Semua ini gratis loh, Anda tidak perlu kemana-mana, dijamin aman, cepat, dan nyaman. Tunggu apa lagi? Daftar sekarang!
Masak apa nih?
Buat buka puasa dong.
Mau masak apa aja? Digital bisa.
Mau belajar ngaji dulu ah. Belajar ngaji.
Mau belajar ngaji? Digital bisa.
Mau kemana?
Mau tausiah dong.
Mau tausiah dari rumah? Digital bisa.
Saat ada kecoa, HP kreditan dihempas mertua. Ambil hikmahnya. Di Blibli Hikmah Ramadan. Bisa beli yang baru, dapat cashback hingga 1 juta rupiah untuk semua produk. Yuk, Blibli sekarang.
Innovation Smesco Online Expo 2021. Satu klik solusi bisnis fashion. Innovation adalah pameran online internasional yang berfokus pada pengembangan produk ekspor dan peningkatan penjualan produk dalam negeri di industri tekstil dan alas kaki.
Pameran ini dibagi ke dalam 4 kategori: raw material, supporting, ready to wear, dan footwear. Dapatkan berbagai keuntungan di pameran ini. Perluas dan perkuat koneksi bisnis Anda. Temukan brand dan produk Indonesia yang berkualitas. Dapatkan update tren dan market fashion terkini, dan bangun serta kembangkan skill kamu dalam berbisnis fashion. Jelajahi pameran ini dengan berbagai fitur. Temukan exhibitor yang cocok dengan bisnis Anda melalui B2B matching. Realisasikan transaksi bisnis Anda dengan video conference call. Dapatkan produk lokal yang berkualitas dan murah di diskon hall kami. Tingkatkan kemampuan berbisnis Anda dengan mengikuti talkshow dan workshop bersama narasumber dari brand ternama. Nikmati paduan produk-produk lokal Indonesia dalam fashion show. Semua ini gratis loh, Anda tidak perlu kemana-mana, dijamin aman, cepat, dan nyaman. Tunggu apa lagi? Daftar sekarang!
Masak apa nih?
Buat buka puasa dong.
Mau masak apa aja? Digital bisa.
Mau belajar ngaji dulu ah. Belajar ngaji.
Mau belajar ngaji? Digital bisa.
Mau kemana?
Mau tausiah dong.
Mau tausiah dari rumah? Digital bisa.
Saat ada kecoa, HP kreditan dihempas mertua. Ambil hikmahnya. Di Blibli Hikmah Ramadan. Bisa beli yang baru, dapat cashback hingga 1 juta rupiah untuk semua produk. Yuk, Blibli sekarang.
Innovation Smesco Online Expo 2021. Satu klik solusi bisnis fashion. Innovation adalah pameran online internasional yang berfokus pada pengembangan produk ekspor dan peningkatan penjualan produk dalam negeri di industri tekstil dan alas kaki.
Pameran ini dibagi ke dalam 4 kategori: raw material, supporting, ready to wear, dan footwear. Dapatkan berbagai keuntungan di pameran ini. Perluas dan perkuat koneksi bisnis Anda. Temukan brand dan produk Indonesia yang berkualitas. Dapatkan update tren dan market fashion terkini, dan bangun serta kembangkan skill kamu dalam berbisnis fashion. Jelajahi pameran ini dengan berbagai fitur. Temukan exhibitor yang cocok dengan bisnis Anda melalui B2B matching. Realisasikan transaksi bisnis Anda dengan video conference call. Dapatkan produk lokal yang berkualitas dan murah di diskon hall kami. Tingkatkan kemampuan berbisnis Anda dengan mengikuti talkshow dan workshop bersama narasumber dari brand ternama. Nikmati paduan produk-produk lokal Indonesia dalam fashion show. Semua ini gratis loh, Anda tidak perlu kemana-mana, dijamin aman, cepat, dan nyaman. Tunggu apa lagi? Daftar sekarang!
Masak apa nih?
Buat buka puasa dong.
Mau masak apa aja? Digital bisa.
Mau belajar ngaji dulu ah. Belajar ngaji.
Mau belajar ngaji? Digital bisa.
Mau kemana?
Mau tausiah dong.
Mau tausiah dari rumah? Digital bisa.
Saat ada kecoa, HP kreditan dihumpas mertua. Ambil hikmahnya. Di Blibli Hikmah Ramadan. Bisa beli yang baru, dapat cashback hingga 1 juta rupiah untuk semua produk. Yuk, Blibli sekarang.
Innovation Smesco Online Expo 2021. Satu klik solusi bisnis fashion.
Inifd sudah berdiri selama 23 tahun dan berada di 20 negara besar seperti Inggris, Dubai, Kanada, dan Prancis. Di Indonesia sendiri, Inifd hanya ada di Indonesia, yaitu di tempat kami di Mangga 2 Square. Inifd bertujuan untuk melahirkan para fashion designer muda dan berbakat yang nantinya bisa membawa nama besar Indonesia.
Saya Jessica, saya student di Inifd Jakarta.
Halo, nama saya Fauzi. Saya adalah alumni Inifd.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Melissa Lauren dan saya akan memandu acara Talkshow pada sore hari ini. Dan hari ini kita kedatangan tamu spesial sebagai narasumber kita, yaitu Mr. Ashley Rebelo sebagai brand ambassador. Nah, buat kalian yang belum tahu juga nih, acara ini ada di dalam naungan Innovation Smesco Online Expo 2021, di mana Innovation Smesco Online Expo 2021 ini adalah pameran virtual untuk semua calon entrepreneur yang bergerak dalam bidang fashion. Yang bergerak di dalam bidang fashion, terutama industri tekstil dan alas kaki. Dan sebagai upaya untuk meningkatkan ekonomi nasional, terutama pada bidang fashion, acara ini akan memberikan peluang kepada para pelaku industri fashion untuk meraih keuntungan di masa pandemik dengan bertemu para pembeli dan dari dalam maupun dari luar negeri. Dan sebelumnya, kita juga kedatangan Ibu Mia Apilia sebagai Center Manager Inifd di Indonesia yang akan memperkenalkan kita sedikit nih mengenai Inifd itu sendiri. Halo Ibu Mia, selamat sore.
Halo Melissa.
Masih semangat ya Ibu?
Nonton hari ini. Iya. Hai Mel, apa kabar?
Baik-baik.
Sehat ya?
Sehat dong Bu tentunya, tetap pakai prokes.
Iya. Oke, mungkin kalau buat yang belum tahu Inifd, mungkin aku bisa jelasin sedikit ya di sini Inifd itu apa gitu. Nah, Inifd itu sebenarnya sekolah fashion design global yang ada di Jakarta. Jadi Inifd sendiri itu ada di 20 kota besar di dunia seperti London, Los Angeles, Dubai, Mumbai, New Delhi, dan banyak lagi. Nah, memang di sini itu misi kami itu adalah memberikan kemudahan untuk para pecinta fashion dan nantinya yang pengen jadi fashion entrepreneur ataupun fashion designer itu supaya nggak usah jauh-jauh kuliah ke luar negeri, cukup di Jakarta aja, tapi bisa dapat sertifikat dari UK gitu. Jadi di Inifd itu memang kita memberikan double sertifikat, jadi sertifikat dari Inifd Global dan sertifikat dari London. Nah, di Inifd itu guru-gurunya tuh juga seru-seru banget. Kita sengaja pilih guru itu yang muda, tapi juga profesional dan berpengalaman di bidangnya. Jadi sistem pengajarannya pun kurikulumnya dari luar. Nah, sistemnya si guru-guru sendiri itu juga memberikan cara yang praktis dan mudah dipahami. Jadi kita sih sistem mengajar itu fun banget, Mel, gitu.
Oke, berarti selain metode belajarnya yang fun dan gampang dimengerti, yang pastinya berarti kita bisa hemat biaya dan hemat waktu juga ya Bu ya.
Pasti, apalagi di Inifd itu memang kita programnya 1 tahun. Nah, dengan program 1 tahun itu bukan berarti kalian itu belum matang loh untuk bisa langsung terjun ke dunia kerja ataupun mau lanjut ke universitas di luar misalnya gitu. Padahal kalau di Inifd itu walaupun cuma 1 tahun, tapi para muridnya itu nantinya begitu keluar dari sini tuh udah siap kerja ke dunia fashion, dan kalau misalnya mau lanjut kuliah di luar itu juga udah siap banget. Jadi udah kayak foundationnya gitu. Jadi kayak sekolah foundation di Indonesia untuk sekolah fashion design itu bisa di Inifd, karena kebetulan memang banyak student-student kita itu yang ngambil di Inifd 1 tahun, abis itu mereka tuh lanjut ke sekolah ke luar negeri, universitasnya ke luar negeri. Jadi memang foundationnya dari Inifd dulu gitu. Karena di Inifd itu kita itu nggak cuma sekedar belajar, tapi kita juga mengajarkan anak-anak itu supaya bisa terjun ke dunia kerja itu kayak apa. Jadi di sini ada program magang, Mel. Kita di sini kasih program magang untuk murid-murid di sini supaya mereka juga ngerasain dan mereka bisa kalau kerja itu seperti apa, rasa tanggung jawab dan segala macamnya. Terus kita juga mengajak mereka itu untuk terjun ke fashion show. Dalam artian karya-karya yang mereka buat selama 1 tahun itu akan dipamerkan di fashion show, yaitu di graduation show. Dan itu sudah termasuk dalam biaya yang dibayarkan pada saat awal masuk sekolah. Jadi mungkin agak sedikit berbeda ya dengan sekolah lain. Kan kalau sekolah lain tuh bayar sekian, nanti masih ada biaya tambahan ini, biaya tambahan itu. Nah kalau di Inifd itu nggak kayak gitu. Jadi begitu bayar sekian, itu sudah all in. Meliputi nanti biaya saat fashion show itu sudah ada di dalam situ. Jadi kalau pada saat fashion show sudah ditanggung semuanya sama Inifd gitu.
Oke, jadi intinya udah paket lengkap lah ya Bu, sekolah di Inifd ini tuh.
Paket lengkap, cuma setahun tapi udah bisa langsung dapat paket lengkap gitu. Dan biayanya juga affordable. Jadi buat para yang pecinta fashion, yang emang pengen terjun ke dunia fashion, pengen bisnis fashion, atau mungkin bahkan banyak juga student kita tuh yang sudah bisnis fashion tapi ingin benar-benar secara education fashionnya dapat, mereka ambil sekolah fashion di sini, Mel, gitu. Jadi buat para pengusaha fashion yang mungkin sekarang nonton nih, mungkin bisa kalau misalnya emang tertarik pengen lebih dalam belajar fashion, bisa ke Inifd gitu.
Oke, mantep banget Inifd di Indonesia. Kalau untuk Inifd sendiri Bu, di dalam Innovation Smesco Expo Online ini keterlibatannya apa Ibu?
Nah, memang di acara Innovation ini lumayan banyak nih acara-acara Inifd. Jadi memang dari awal sebelum pameran ini dibuka, kita sudah mengadakan fashion drawing competition. Tapi sekarang penuh sudah ditutup karena udah dari tanggal 21 kemarin. Udah 1 bulan kita buka untuk pengiriman materi dan semuanya memang secara online, Mel. Nah, yang satu lagi ada OOTD competition. OOTD itu outfit of the day. Jadi kayak misalnya, kalau pasti sering lihat deh ya, anak-anak sekarang kan pada demen foto gaya-gaya pakai baju ini, pakai baju itu. Nah, kita tuh adain lomba supaya mereka tuh bisa menyalurkan hobi-hobi gaya mereka, dan juga misalnya foto itu juga bisa ikut di OOTD ini, karena di OOTD ini jurinya itu kita ada Hartono Hosea yang dimana dia adalah fotografer profesional, dan satu lagi ada Karen Vandela, yaitu dia fashion entrepreneur dan juga influencer gitu. Jadi nanti dilihat dari segi fotonya dan dilihat juga dari segi mix and match bajunya gitu. Nah ini masih ada nih Mel lombanya sampai tanggal 29 April. Nah tiap minggu itu bakal ganti-ganti tema. Nah, yang sekarang ini lagi tema batik chic. Jadi kalau misalnya buat kamu-kamu yang pengen ikutan, masih bisa nih, karena batasnya sampai hari Minggu ini si tema batik chic. Nanti minggu depan udah ganti lagi temanya, dan itu minggu terakhir temanya adalah denim. Nah, jadi tetap pantengin aja IG-nya Inifd sama IG-nya inaproduct.com, karena nanti di situ pasti infonya bakal ditayangin gitu. Nah, terus selain itu, selain lomba-lomba tadi, kita kemarin sempat ada fashion show ya Mel.
Iya,
jadi kalau yang ketinggalan nonton fashion show-nya Inifd, bisa nonton di websitenya Ina Fashion atau bisa nonton di link YouTube. Nanti bisa lihat tuh di IG-nya Inifd atau inaproduct.com, pasti ada info itu. Nonton di link YouTube-nya kita pasti ada di situ. Nah, terus ada lagi talk show seperti yang hari ini. Terus nanti tanggal 27 bakal ada talk show juga sama Jasa Skedeno. Dia itu seorang batik designer tapi asal dari Venezuela. Terus tanggal 24 dan 25 kita bakal ada workshop. Nah, berarti Sabtu Minggu ini nih bakal ada workshop. Di tanggal 24 kita bakal bikin kain dari motifnya dengan bahan-bahan natural, yaitu eco print sistemnya namanya. Terus tanggal 25-nya kita bakal bikin jaket yang tahan air, jadi cocok banget kalau misalnya mau dipakai di masa pandemi ini karena gampang dibersihin. Gitu.
Oke, berarti benar-benar seminggu ke depan bakalan banyak acara-acara menarik ya Bu ya, dari talkshow,
Banyak acara,
workshop.
jadi ikutin aja terus IG-nya Inifd sama IG-nya inaproduct.com. Nah, di situ info-infonya lengkap banget. Kita selalu kasih info acara-acara apa yang bakal ada di kemudian hari, kita pasti bakal infoin di situ. Ada linknya juga, link pendaftaran, link masuk ke website, bisa di situ. Ada semuanya di situ. Jadi kalau yang masih pengen ikutan OOTD competition masih bisa daftar. Terus kalau misalnya mau nonton aja bisa langsung masuk sebagai visitor di pameran Innovation UNESCO Online Expo ya. Bisa nonton semua tayangan yang ada di Innovation ini gitu.
Oke, menarik banget sih Bu. Terlebih lagi juga yang bagian competition-nya ini Bu, benar-benar relate banget ya ke anak-anak
Nah, competition-nya
muda ya.
iya pasti pada pengen ikut deh, karena hadiahnya juga selain ada uang tunai juga ada yang lain nih gitu. Jadi buruan deh kalau masih mau ikutan OOTD masih ada, tapi kalau fashion design competition ya maaf aja udah tutup soalnya. Gitu.
Oke, terima kasih Bu Mia atas penjelasan singkatnya mengenai Inifd di Indonesia. Nah,
iya, sama-sama.
Oke. Nah, untuk para hadirin, sebelum kita masuk ke inti acara kita pada hari ini, dari pihak kita memiliki beberapa video untuk para hadirin saksikan terlebih dahulu. Selamat menyaksikan. going to proceed to our main agenda today, which is the talk show. And for this talk show, we have Ms. Roshni as our moderator and Mr. Ashley Rebello as our guest speaker. For Ms. Roshni and Mr. Ashley, the time is yours.
Thank you.
Hello, Melissa. Thank you so much for that introduction. So let me just start off by introducing myself and Mr. Ashley. I'm one of the instructors at Inifd Indonesia. So I'm teaching textiles and fashion concept. And today we're going to be talking about embroidery and its impact in the fashion industry. And we have here Mr. Ashley Rebello joining us. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us, Mr. Ashley. So first
Thank
off,
you.
so let me just give our audience a little introduction about you. So Mr. Ashley here is actually a costume and fashion designer from India. He's been working in the fashion industry for over 15 years now, and he's also fashion stylist to Indian superstar Salman Khan. Now, Mr. Ashley, can you give us a little bit more insight into your career in the fashion industry, just so our audience knows you better?
Well, hi Indonesia, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor and my pleasure too. As we are in lockdown, I couldn't have it in my office, so it's in the comfort of my home, which is much better. And I've been in this line not for 15 years, but for the last 25 years. And I've been working with Salman Khan. And I've been working with Salman Khan for the last 14 years. So it's been a great journey, and I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I have with the students around.
Okay, thank you. Would you like us to show that video?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That would be great.
Tobias, if you could play the video.
Thank you.
Okay, wow. So I see you work a lot with celebrities and you do fashion styling for blockbuster movies, for Salman Khan, right?
Yes.
And so what is that like? Is it kind of something you always wanted to do or something you just fell into?
Well, besides being a designer, I always wanted to be a singer too, but then I gave that up long back. But it just happened by chance that I walked into a producer's office, and he happened to be the director too. And I just knew him vaguely and through some common friends. And he was looking out for new designers, new actors, a whole new crew for himself. And I just took that opportunity, and I thought, why not? I always wanted to see my name in the silver screen. And that's when I jumped in right in, and I said, yes, I want to do this film. And just like that, he also said, yes, I'd like you to do this film because I like the way you styled yourself and you walked in, and I like your ideas and what you have to say about cinema and how you want to portray it. And that's how I got into movies.
Okay, wow, very interesting. And so you're a costume designer too, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure you work a lot with embroideries and you work with them often. How's the process like? Do you go directly to the artisans? Do you design the embroideries yourself? Or do you go to a big, a manufacturer? Can you please tell us more about your design process?
So I know that embroidery traces back to China and almost in the 3rd century, and archaeological sites did find dating back to almost the 2000 BC, where they found a lot of needles and a lot of embroidered cloth and tons of other things, which also said that it said that there were needles existing, there were some sort of ways and measures of how to embroider something. So I love embroidered fabrics. I try and embroider everything myself. From my curtains in my house to my upholstery, and everything is embroidered by my embroiders. So I do have a set of embroiders, and I sit and work with them with my design team. We try and make a design that would be different, but yet inspiring from some place or the other, depending on what the client wants, and try and make an entire design and then get it embroidered. So you have different kinds of embroidery, like up north you have more fulkari, and most common is dozy and thread work and French knots, which a lot of brides like, and a lot of actors and a lot of clients like.
Okay, interesting. And you're talking about the history of embroidery, right? It dates back to 300 BC back in China. And could you talk a little bit more about how it came to be? Like, what was the main purpose of embroidery? Why did it travel so far? How did that happen?
Well, coming to know of embroidery, there are a lot of floral prints and motifs and trees and all the things that women would look around them and actually make them. So like a wedding ceremony, that would be embroidered on. A tree that somebody liked, or a butterfly, or animals, that would be embroidered in. And thus the existence of really from needlework, so to say, getting onto embroidery. Of course, influences like the Mughal influence with flowers and fountains and birds and bees, and also from China coming in, all the very intricate, the pink little flowers, the cherry blossom, the writing, Chinese writing, the beautiful women, and so you would have an amalgamation of all this, because what they saw around is what they embroidered at that given point of time. In today's day and age, of course, we try and derive inspiration from them and from the old archives. Like, I have a series of pictures that I have shared, and in that I have shared the old embroidery of Afghan and, coming in from the Mughal era into India, and, some of the embroideries that I have done and designed actually. So, yeah, so these are some of my brides that I have. It's fully embroidered gowns.
Oh, wow.
So,
and this is mirror work, right?
Yeah, the sari is with mirror work, but the whole the blouse is mirror work, which is very predominantly Rajasthan and Gujarat, and and the other gown is predominantly Zardozi work, which is more fine and more refined, and of course very Mughal influence on us.
Yeah, of course. So obviously when it comes to influences, it has to come from a lot of different cultures, right? Because there's
Correct.
also
Absolutely right.
yeah.
It's it's an expressive way of several
Mhm.
cultures. It's like a
Mhm.
metamorphosis of a whole community, rural traditions.
Yeah.
Also, embroidery was very prominently featured in dowry goods. When a wedding happened, then it was how well the bride would actually embroider something. It was known as, okay, oh, she can embroider something. So a
Yeah.
lot of jewelry also, like I use in mine, like you can see the green outfit. I try and embroider uh, jewelry along with embroidery. I add in jewelry pieces, and that's what makes it look a lot more different. That's
Yeah.
Malaika Aurora and one of my gowns, which is again like a stone, like a completely crystal work, but
Oh,
yet
that's beautiful.
in a Zardozi form.
Mm, okay.
So hand embroidery in India is very varied and has great traditions. It's inspired by nature, religion, color, themes. Uh, we have, styles across different states, different regions.
Yeah.
The basic material, a lot of, it varies from net and velvet and cotton and silk to even leather in today's day and age, of course. And the basic patterns in fabric and the desired texture. Texture is what is really beautiful about embroidery. It's like a 3D effect that comes to life, that brings
Yeah.
in
It
life
is.
to a design. So it's the particular stitch, the particular finish, and the effect. So hand embroidery in India includes dozens of, styles and variations, and um, like squares and circles and dots and triangles and all different combinations, of that constitute the design by itself. Also, Indian embroidery, the tradition in Indian embroidery represents a very mixed heritage of like culture and craftsmanship, and it's an amalgamation of more of ancient influences drawn from the Silk Route trading that comes in from
Yes.
China, and the
Yeah.
Persian invasion which came in from the north, and also all the immigrations, the trade with China which came in with their culture and their beliefs. So we also had a lot of like real gold thread initially. Then there was Gozmar, which is a fine chicken curry work. Then there's a dozi, there's farsha, there's ari work, which is like a gold thread, very beautifully woven into fabric. Then there is resham work, which is like thread work. And these are all parts of, craftsmanship and techniques, which are still practiced right across India even today. The haute couture, the silk that's taken in terms of craftsmanship and design and material is now going global. So that's why all the haute couture brands come into um, India to do their embroidery. Very like all the prominent ones. And they also want popular embroideries like like kata work, which is very predominantly Bengal. Then there is this gota work, which is like made out of fine ribbon, gold ribbon, and it's more Rajasthani. Then the rabari work, which is fine mirror work and thread work, minutely done, which is very Gujarat and Rajasthan again. Then we have like the Kashida from Kashmir, which is, the trees and the birds and the rivers flowing and all done in silk and thread and beautifully woven. Then there is, the Chamba, which is a Rumar from the Himachal Pradesh, and it's Kasoti from Karnataka, which is the state which I am from, Mangalore, where I was born and brought up from. So, there is a large part of India, which has different varieties and different kinds and different styles of embroidery. And predominantly now, it's all, coming into the limelight because of all the international brands that are so thronging to a country like India.
So I know that India has an extensive background in embroidery, right? I mean,
Yes.
we've been doing embroidery for so many years now, but why is it only now that it has gained that limelight from these haute couture brands? Why are they doing their embroideries in India now and not, since before? I know a couple international designers like Dries Van Noten has been doing embroidery in India for years, but as long as we know, when we think about haute couture embroidery, we think about France, right? We think about Paris, which is the center for couture, but now they're all moving their embroidery production to India. So yeah, could you share a little bit about, why is it happening now? Is it better in India, or what's the reason?
I would say a few countries along with India, like Bangladesh and Pakistan, also very, very prominent in terms of embroidery. And I guess it's more because of the natural movement of the people around and, the culture where poetry and song and dance and everything is so much a part of the culture, which is also all part of embroidery because that's what they really relate to. So if it is Basant or it's Bahar, which is like your summer and your spring. So they would do all the beautiful flowers that would bloom during that time. That was the embroidery that they would use. And that's where they would get the inspiration from butterflies and bees and birds. And, I know I'm repeating myself, but of course, a lot of influence also from Iran, which is Persia, which came in, which is beautiful, swans and ducks and cranes and just beautiful different kinds of. So then also we had a lot of influence coming in from Portugal, Holland, France, Britain, because we were also under the British Raj, so that became all these invaders, that came in. They took in all our craftsmanship right from Gujarat to Bengal, and it's been 100 years down. So that's why I find a lot of the luxury brands, they all source from India. The only reason for embellishment is outsourced to India is, like made in France, made in Italy, all these luxurious brands, just to cut their cost because it's more economical. The only ones who still can afford embroiderers are more like, in France, like Chanel and Hermes. These are the two brands that I know that, still, don't outsource. But 90% of the other brands all come into, countries like India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and all around, of course, even China. And because of the beautiful craftsmanship that we have and the prices that really are low. So that's where they can optimize onto the maximum that they can get from making these goods.
So I know that it's much cheaper to produce in India, right? I think about 10 times much cheaper. Is that true compared to producing in France?
I would say about 80%, not even 10 times. I would say about 80. Yes. 80%. So if I had to get, say, a motif of a flower right round a handkerchief, which is barely like, 5 inches by 5 inches. If I had to get it done in anywhere in London or in Paris or whatever, it would cost, I'm talking about simple thread work. It would cost me anything between Indian rupees, I would say, or let's talk in dollars because it's universal. I would say it would cost me anything between about $50 to $100, and I could get the same thing done in about $10. So
Oh,
that's the
wow.
difference, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that Europe is very high. You know, their degree of finesse is something that they want. The craftsmanship has to be, you know, uttermost top line. So there is this lady called Kashmira Swahili. She's a managing director of a family-run company called Chanakya, which is one of the most prominent, famous embroidery exporters from India. It's called Ateliers. And the other reason why Indian craftsmanship is very unique is because the embroidery, the traditions, the, you know, everything that's representing India in a very, very, in the mix of its heritage, its culture, its craftsmanship, all these influences that you know, through the centuries that are gained, and you know, this exquisite work is being done, that is why they trust more it to come from here, because they find it more
Yes.
like the root of the
Mm-hmm.
embroidery.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very, very interesting. And is there a big difference though, technique-wise between Indian embroidery and French embroidery? Because
So- sorry.
sorry, yeah. I studied tambour work, so that's the
Mhm.
French embroidery back when I
Yeah.
was studying in London, but I'm not familiar with the Indian techniques. So if you could explain.
So a lot of Indian embroidery is more motif based. So, like I said, like the flowers, or you take like a lotus, for example, is very, very Indian based, contemporary or traditional, both ways. One can use it because we also draw out a lot of inspiration from fabric that has been procured, you know, like a Banarasi silk sari. They would weave in different kinds of motifs and flowers and prints. And those were the kind of embroidery that were taken, those prints were taken and embroidered by people. So either they would do it on top of the sari, or they would take it separately and put it onto silk or velvet, so or whatever the fabric that one has. I just find that, you know, embroidery is, you know, whether it's with pearls or with beads or with feathers or with crystal, nowadays embroidery is everywhere. It's like luxury fashion, from clothes to bags to shoes. Everything has embroidery on it, you know. So some basic techniques and stitches, which are very, very, you know, like the chain stitch, for example, a buttonhole, blanket stitch, a running stitch, satin stitch, you know, the cross stitch. So all these stitches appear more like, you know, essential techniques of hand embroidery, which are very, very particular to like India, or, you know, or the countries all around, where they would innovate with them. Like the French knot also, we brought it into our culture and are using it a lot with Zardozi, thus making it look really, really beautiful. A lot of international names like Chanel and Alexander McQueen and have created iconic looks with their, you know, their craftsmanship and all coming in from India. Karl Lagerfeld, Yves Saint Laurent, Dior, Gucci, Versace, Moschino, Fendi, Prada, all these brands, you know, 90% of the embroidery is created in India. And a lot of the exporters which play a huge role is, like I said, Chanakya, which is an international brand. Then there is also Milaya embroideries, which cater to a lot of embroideries to more luxurious houses like Chloe, Hermes, Balmain, Ralph Lauren, Gucci, Celine, Valentino, Prada. So I would definitely say that there is something here that they come and they thrive on, and they also tend to um, they also tend to uh, sorry There was a call that came in. They also tend to, like Louis Vuitton opened a whole workshop in Pondicherry in 2007. And, we have this Van Norton, which is working, it's a own family-based company in Kolkata for the last 25 years, which works with Dior, So Maria Grazia, that also works with Dior. And again, Chanakya's name keeps coming because they're one of the most prominent, craftsmen from India. And they work with all these international brands. So they very often they also given their designs. They'll tell you the color combinations. They'll tell you all the possible uh, combinations in terms of beads and pearls and what they want. And then you make samples and then you send them across and they approve of the samples, they change it, probably add in color. They want you to dye all the sequins, they want you to dye in all the stones and everything according to their liking. And once a sample is made and it's finalized, which is another process, then they send you the fabric and then they tell you, or they tell you to procure the fabric from India itself, where they also have their own manufacturing unit. Some of them, if they are prints, then they send you the prints and you print it on the fabric. Again, you send them back for a approval and then get it embroidered. So it's a long, long process. So, as you know, you must be a fashion student. You are a fashion student too, because you said you studied in London. So you know the whole, the rigmarole of how one starts from design and when one starts with the design element. It's just not today you start and then tomorrow you take out a collection, which is a summer collection. No, you start a year, 2 years in advance. So it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of research and a lot of work which goes along.
And especially, I think embroidery can be also called a form of art, won't you say? The amount of, work and handiwork it takes to make even a piece of embroidery takes thousands of hours, especially in couture garments, right?
Yes.
So I think, what you're saying is that the embroidery that we do in India can be, compared or maybe even better than the one that they do in France, right?
I don't know whether I could say that, but of course, definitely on power, because a lot of the larger companies and international brands trust, a lot of Indian companies with their embroidery. That very fact says something about it, because they wouldn't just trust an international brand that is going to be selling all over the world, to come into India and procure the kind of embroidery that they want. They would definitely want the best. And I guess because we've been in India, we've been getting it throughout the years and years and years and years, it's like a livelihood for many women. A lot of, companies are trying to get women to empower them in terms of embroidery and teach them and thus empowering them. Thus empowering them in terms of, giving them a livelihood and giving them something that they could give back to the community and also to give back to their families. And I have been to Gujarat on the outskirts where the Rabari women, it's a thriving business for them. There are a lot of people who make bags, and there is this one guy called Vipul who's then taken in all these and made these really, really nice clutches and bags. And we've had like Julia Roberts and Beyonce and Jennifer Lopez and all the Indian actresses and everybody wearing them and carrying them around, thus making him one of the most famous people in Udaipur and Jaipur all around Rajasthan. And people actually, when they're coming to India, they're traveling around, they want to make it a stop that they want to go to a store and buy his products. So whether locally made or whether it is, a unit that people have where they empower women. I think it is a sort of validation in terms of, the stamp that they bring about, that saying that, oh, we're giving you quality and just
Yeah.
not quantity.
Definitely. Especially because I think in the past there's this connotation that the world has on India just because we produce a lot of the fast fashion here as well, right?
Yes.
So I guess it
Also,
gives Please go
sorry.
on.
Yeah, like, a lot of companies like Zara and all the other big companies, they do a lot of machine embroidery, which is mass production. But sometimes they do a few hand embroidered, just limited pieces that, like pre-Christmas or New Year's or any festive occasion, they tend to do this entire line, which flies off because it's something that is so beautiful, and also because it's also mass produced, the price does come down. So if at all, like, a Chanel is asking for only 5,000 pieces, while a Zara is asking for 50,000 pieces. So you have people actually hand uh, embroidering it in mass production. So it's a livelihood for a lot of people
It
in India.
is. And obviously this is a great impact for the Indian industry, right? But what else does this impact have on the fashion industry as a whole? This whole change in the dynamic, the embroiderers changing from being in France to changing to India now.
Well, I guess because of the economics that it works out better that way. A lot of like I said before, a lot of the international brands, they come into India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, where it is much more cheaper. Uh, Workmanship is much more cheaper, and they get the same quality. So I would definitely say I would definitely say that it is very very the skills. A lot of the women do it because it's their livelihood, and they take it seriously as a job, because that's how their houses run. And they also work with a lot of women who are destitute women, or who've been divorced, or have marital problems, or have uh, you know different stratas of society. And they all come in together as a group and work and earn a living and a livelihood. And I guess that also, that pride and that what they give to the embroidery is also a lot, because it also depends on who's doing the embroidery for you. You just don't have workers just mindlessly working on. They do it with passion, and they love what they do.
And I think, what you said, embroidery in India is kind of like a craft that you pass down from, mother to daughter. Is that something that,
Well,
yeah.
like a lot of the girls, the hand stitch and the little buttonholing, and every mother teaches everybody how to do the basic, running stitch and cross stitch. And you make these small little handkerchiefs, or you make these small little doilies, and you put them up in frames in the houses, and it comes down from generation to generation to generation, or whether it is even your knitting. So I guess it's a hand me down, and you do get to learn. But in India, a lot of the embroiderers are men. I would say about 80% are men and about 20% are women. It depends on which part of the country you are going and what kind of work that you're looking at. So, like I said, like the Rabari work, and I would say that there it is the women are about 80% and the men are 20%. But if you look at the Dozi work, all going up to like Kolkata and Bengal and Lucknow, central India, and all these places, it's more men that they do. Like I have my embroiderers, which are all men and they all speak Bengali. They all come in from the northeast, and they're very very good with their work, and they're like treasures, So you have to guard it with all due respect.
Like you said, you have your own embroidery workers, right, for your
Yes, I
brand.
do. Yes, I do.
And I bet they feel like family at this point.
Beg your pardon?
I'm sure they're kind of like family at this point, right?
Yes, they are. Of course, they're a part of my work, and they're part of my family, and they're part of my entire, um, my entire workforce that I have. And I like having my own embroiderers because then the designs stay in and they don't go out. And there's a lot more. Uh, you can do a lot more when you have your own people. You can try and explain to them, and rather than outsourcing it very often, because that's when we have the privilege of having them because it is economical to have them and keep them, and you know uh, have a workshop. So, but yet. Sometimes I feel that, they know that you're doing work for films, and, you're making these clothes for these brides and you're charging them so much. So why not I charge you more? So we do have that problem off and on at all given point of times, but one knows how to deal with it by now because one is so used to it.
Yeah, and I'm sure, when it comes to an art form like this, embroidery is kind of like painting on fabric, right? It's hard to understand a designer's vision. So having someone who understands your vision and sticking to that person is, I think, also very important.
Definitely, definitely. It makes a huge difference because also I've been working with most of my embroiderers for the last 15 years, 20 years. And, so it's easy when I draw something and I try and explain to them that this is where it's going to be on the garment. They immediately understand because they have been working with me for so many years. And that makes my life much, much more easier. Sometimes, of course, it's difficult because you have a lot of trials, tribulations in terms of timing. Sometimes they just don't give you everything on time, and there's so much of backlog. And a lot of international designers also, a lot of companies that do embroidery for international work, they lose out on a lot of work because they do not give it on time. And that is something that one has to respect. And once you give in a word, you must stand by it.
Yes. And, we've been talking about embroidery in the scope of haute couture fashion or costume design, but is it still widely used in modern clothing in India?
Yes, definitely. I mean, all Indian occasions, whether it's a wedding, everybody dresses up Indian. You don't go to an Indian wedding where anybody's wearing a Western outfit. Everybody wears Indian outfits and they're all embroidered beautifully. So I guess those are one occasions that they look forward to dressing up. And, it's this fantasy world of Bollywood and also of all this color and a riot of different functions. And so I guess the Indian tradition comes alive over there when everybody is like, all dressed up with the finest jewelry and beautifully embroidered outfits. And so there is a lot of scope in India once you start making a name for yourself and you have a certain a style or a certain stamp that people know that this is the kind of embroidery that you do, or this is the kind of work and craftsmanship that you have. So it does, a lot of times it does, there's tons of work that is there, and there's enough for everybody because there are hundreds of weddings that happen, and there are tons of functions that happen. So, but everybody wants some sort of an embroidery on their outfit. So it's predominantly very, very big in India and also in Pakistan.
So mostly for wedding events, right?
Yes, even like festive occasions, whether it's Diwali or whether it's Eid or whether it is Ganpati or all these festive occasions, like if it's in Punjab, they use this fulkari work, which is like a thread work, which is done in triangles and squares, and they make these cute little peacocks and all the different kinds of animals also around it. So it depends on which region you are from, and a lot of people like to amalgamate a lot of it now because it's very, very modern. So all functions people like to dress up. They just want an excuse to dress up, and embroidery is a very, very important aspect.
Okay, well, we actually have some questions from the audience, but before I get to that, do you have a final thought or final insight about the embroidery industry in India that you would like to share with our audience?
Okay. Oh, you're asking me? Well, the kind of there is a huge scope, of course, for entrepreneurs to showcase their goods, make beautiful samples, and make sure that it has top quality and of sequins and beads, and then the kind of embroidery that you use. See that your work is very, very neat and your finish is extremely good. You can outsource from any other country into India. So a lot of people invest a lot in sampling. So, and you can take it to buyers and show them your wares, and of course it does get you a lot of work, and India is thriving right now on it. And in fact, recently we even had some of the big international designers do complete Indian mirrorwork outfits, and so that was that much amount of work that came in from the international designers, and so they did explore also local cultures and local designs that they used. They didn't use their own, but they used the Indian design. So there is scope in and a lot of scope in India.
So I think what you're trying to say is that for entrepreneurs who are maybe in the fashion business, India would be a great place to invest in embroideries and doing embroideries for the collection, right?
Definitely, I would say, because the price points that you get would be wonderful. Of course, we can't really match up to China, but we're close.
Okay, and especially for the quality of the craftsmanship, India is very
of course.
Yes. Okay, so let me just get the questions from the audience, and then we can start. Okay, so first question we have here is, how has COVID affected the industry of embroidery, and how have you managed to tackle the problems that has arose?
Well, right now it's a bad situation, I would say, because COVID has definitely penetrated its way into the industry, whether it's a film industry, whether it is the even the embroidery industry, and even just the whole fabric industry. And so it's going to take some time. We're limping back, but it's difficult, and it's very, very difficult times. But one has to cope because one has to go along, and there's hope that things will be better soon.
Yes, of course. Okay, and next question we have here is, do you have any vision or dreams for the future generations in the industry of fashion, specifically embroidery?
Well, definitely, I would encourage a lot of students to get into even accessorization, because nowadays a lot of the international brands want belts and leather fashion and shoes and bags and clutches and pouches, and there's so many avenues, right, from hairbands to tons and tons of things that one can make. And considering that it is so readily and easily available here, outsourcing is something that one should look at and make it a profession, so that it's a great form of remuneration for one individual self, and satisfaction too, because you also get what you want.
Mhm. So accessorizing is a great tool. Okay, and one last question. Do you have anything to say and advice for Indonesian fashion or embroidery?
Well,
Have you?
I don't know much about Indonesian
Mhm.
fashion and industry. I don't know what it is locally, so I'm sure you'll have a lot of designers and that are locally grown, and that are very, very famous, and I am going to look up onto them. I promise I will do that. But I'm sure you have your traditions and your ways of working and living, and of course you must be even having your local embroiders. So I would say your topography plays a huge amount of influence on your styling, on your embroidery, and the way you make your clothes and what you make out of it, and how your collection is, and how you validate that. So that is something that is left up to an individual to create one's own name and a brand for themselves that really brings out the best of their culture, their style, and their country. And it's something that you'll be proud of. I would definitely say that your culture and your style and your proud reflects a whole lot on your garments too.
Mhm. Even Indonesia is a country with rich culture, and there's a lot of different embroideries from the different islands we have over here, but it has a lot of space to grow when it comes to embroidery, because technique wise, from what I've seen, we're still just using a needle and thread instead of like a tambour hook and a wooden template like that, like they do in India and France. So there's much improvement to be done here when it comes to embroidery.
Okay. I hope
And
so.
yeah.
And I think young aspiring designers like you will definitely make a difference.
Definitely. And do you have any advice for, let's say we have Indonesian designers who are looking for embroiderers in India? Where can they look for? Or should they contact maybe small local artisans, or just go for the big, manufacturers? What advice would you give?
I would say you look for small artisans. A lot of the country has a lot of advantages, and they give you a lot of incentives. Each state, you have to identify what you want first, and then each state has different styles and different kinds of embroidery. And once you identify that, I think it becomes much, much more easier. But the predominantly most of so-called famous ones, Kolkata, northeastern Kolkata, and of course Bombay and Lucknow. So they're very, very specific. And then of course Rajasthan and Gujarat, which have a typical kind of embroidery, which is very, very popular. So I would say these 4 or 5 different states are very popular in their typical kind of embroidery, which is very internationally grown. So if you want to make a mark internationally and you want your wares to be in that standard, then these are the places where you would go.
Mhm. And we have another question here talking about the embroiderers in India. Now, you said certain areas have more men working on the embroideries than women. And why is that? Is it just culturally different, or is it much better if it's done by a man? Or
I don't know exactly what it is, but I wouldn't pinpoint it. But I would say it's hand me down from generations to generation. And but like I said, if you go to Gujarat and Rajasthan, it's women predominantly. But if you go to do Zardozi work in Kolkata, or you go to chicken work, for example, you go to Lucknow, it's all women again, So, but predominantly in Northeast, Kolkata and everywhere, the kind of Zardozi work, which is very, very Muslim influence coming in from the Arabic culture and also from the Persian culture. I guess when the men came, they brought it with them, and then it's hand me down from there onwards. So that's the only logical explanation I can give.
of course, of course. I think that's all the question we have for today. Let me just confirm one more time. If you could just give me 2 minutes, if there's any more questions, you can just send it in the chat. Okay, so I've got another question here. So the audience wants to know, do you have any tips on how the Indonesian embroidery industry, maybe fashion industry, can grow to be as big as the Indian embroidery industry?
Well, I guess also if you have good workmanship and you have cheaper labor, one should come into a country like India, scout around, see the techniques, probably take some of them from here, and get them to teach local artisans the way they work with international designers, and then take it from there. So I guess there is a huge opportunity out here, and in all Far East and Asian countries, I find labor is much more cheaper. So we can thrive on that, so to say, and we can actually give also more work to people and also get what we want in the bargain.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So it's all about learning the craft first and then,
Yes.
employing it. Yes, definitely.
Also read about it also. That is also available online and everywhere. But actually physically coming, and if you want to take it up as a great opportunity, then physically come to another country, wherever it may be, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and learn and take what is good and go back and start your own. And I'm sure it'll affect you that same kind of quality.
And okay, so we got another question. It's mostly about quality. Now, can you tell the difference between what's the difference between a good quality embroidery, like for example, the ones in the high-end brands, and the ones that are done maybe for the mass market brands like Zara. Is there actually a big difference between these two embroideries that has been done, and what's the difference?
Definitely, there is a huge quality difference because one is mass produced and one is, produced in lesser numbers and only for its quality. So I would say that when you're doing mass production, you also don't look at so much into minute details, but you just want the overall finish. While as when you do classics, designs and stuff for big international brands where they want quality more than anything else. Also, in mass production, you would use like a cheaper sequin or a cheaper tube bead, or you would use pearls which are not really, of higher quality. While as over here, you would use high quality sequins, lighter, so that the weight of the fabric is not so heavy as much as how it would be on the other ones. So thus, maximizing that, and in the other way, minimizing it. So I would say there would be definitely a difference in quality.
Is there like a big difference between the embroideries done in India? Like, could you tell that it was done in India? Maybe it's the style of the drawing or the type of needlework.
I wouldn't tell. I wouldn't tell at all. I couldn't tell because very often I've seen, because I know friends and I know people. I have seen the embroidery being done, and then when I actually see the garment, it doesn't look anything like it is done in India. So I guess only the people who actually know where it is being done from are the only ones that know where it's coming from. The lay public or people who are buying it wouldn't know where it is being done.
Yeah, and I also assume that the embroiderers in India are very flexible when it comes to design style, and they're like able to adapt with the new design trends, and they're able to do everything. They're very versatile in that way.
Yes, also because the designs are so specific in terms of given to them that they cannot even waver here and there. So
Yeah.
I guess that is the specification is so important in terms of international buyers and dealers. They want something exactly. You have to give what they want, and that is where quality comes in. More than quantity.
Yeah. Okay, wow. Well, I feel like everyone here has learned so much from you today, Mr. Ashley. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for sharing, us about everything, your insights in the embroidery industry, and also your history in the fashion industry in India as well. I think that would be all from us today. Do you have anything to conclude for our audience?
I would say hard work is something that will never go out of style, and it's everybody keeps saying that you work hard and you reach where you want to. It's the truth because there's nothing else. There's no other option for hard work and learning. I feel at any given point of time in your life, you should never stop learning because it's a process that helps you grow as an individual, and it just enhances your work and makes it better. So for me, fashion is more about wearing one's confidence and wearing one's style, and being yourself more than just blindfoldedly following anything that's in fashion.
Okay, wow, thank you so much for that. So we already learned so much today about embroidery as a whole, embroidery in India, and how the Indian embroidery industry has taken over luxury fashion brands. And Mr. Ashley also already shared with us about his insight in the embroidery industry. So if you're a designer or in Indonesia or anywhere, and you want to have good quality embroidery, you can just go to India and have it done over there, because the quality is definitely top notch, and for the price point that they give, it's definitely worth every penny. So I think it's a really good investment to put your money in the embroiderers in India. And also, I feel like doing embroidery in India gives you sort of history and depth into the culture as well, which is something that you don't really get in other places. It gives its own unique style. So for anyone out there watching this, this has been me, Roshni, and joined by Sir Ashley. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, now I'm gonna conclude in Indonesian. Jadi buat semua yang udah nonton, terima kasih banyak. Tadi Mr. Ashley udah jelasin tentang embroidery di India. Nah, misalnya kalau kalian tuh seorang fashion designer dan mau bikin embroidery yang kualitasnya bagus banget, bisa aja coba dengan embroider tukang payet atau tukang bordir yang ada di India, atau enggak perusahaan bordir di sana, karena mereka juga sering bikin bordiran buat Chanel, Hermes gitu-gitu, banyak, semua tuh udah pada bikin di India, bukan hanya di Prancis aja, karena memang di India tuh lebih murah, jadi semuanya pada lari ke India sekarang. Itu aja sih buat talk show hari ini, dan semoga kalian udah banyak pelajar dari talk show hari ini dengan Mr. Ashley. Oke, jangan lupa setelah talk show ini ada talk show selanjutnya, yaitu talk show dengan Bapak Mawan Hermawan dari DM I Love Indonesia. Itu besok jam 10 pagi. Dan ada juga workshop dengan Kriselda Purba dari Inifd dengan tema Ecoprint Fabric pada tanggal 24 April jam 10 pagi. Saksikan di inafashion.inaproduct.com. Jangan lupa juga jumpa acara Inafashion Smesco Online Expo 2020 sebagai visitor dan bayar pada tanggal 21 sampai 31 April 2021. Jika ada pertanyaan, kontak langsung ke social media kami @inaproduct.com. Terima kasih atas kehadirannya, saya pamit undur diri. Jangan lupa di Inafashion Smesco Online Expo 2021. Satu klik solusi bisnis dan belanja fashion. Oke, Inafashion Smesco Online Expo 2021 didukung oleh Kementerian Perdagangan, Kementerian Koperasi dan UKM, Kementerian Perindustrian, Kementerian Luar Negeri, dan Kementerian Pariwisata dan Ekonomi Kreatif, dan disponsori oleh Telkom, Bank Mandiri, Modal Rakyat, Tokopedia, Blibli, BNI, Lazada, dan Inifd. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night. And have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Innovation Smesco Online Expo 2021. Satu klik solusi bisnis fashion. Innovation adalah pameran online internasional yang berfokus pada pengembangan produk ekspor dan peningkatan penjualan produk dalam negeri di industri tekstil dan alas kaki.
Pameran ini dibagi ke dalam 4 kategori: raw material, supporting, ready to wear, dan footwear. Dapatkan berbagai keuntungan di pameran ini. Perluas dan perkuat koneksi bisnis Anda. Temukan brand dan produk Indonesia yang berkualitas. Dapatkan update tren dan market fashion terkini, dan bangun serta kembangkan skill kamu dalam berbisnis fashion. Jelajahi pameran ini dengan berbagai fitur. Temukan exhibitor yang cocok dengan bisnis Anda melalui B2B matching. Realisasikan transaksi bisnis Anda dengan video conference call. Dapatkan produk lokal yang berkualitas dan murah di diskon hall kami. Tingkatkan kemampuan berbisnis Anda dengan mengikuti talkshow dan workshop bersama narasumber dari brand ternama. Nikmati paduan produk-produk lokal Indonesia dalam fashion show. Semua ini gratis loh, Anda tidak perlu kemana-mana, dijamin aman, cepat, dan nyaman. Tunggu apa lagi? Daftar sekarang!
Masak apa nih?
Buat buka puasa dong.
Mau masak apaan? Digital bisa.
Mau belajar ngaji dulu ah. Belajar ngaji.
Mau belajar ngaji? Digital bisa.
Mau kemana?
Mau tausiah dong.
Mau tausiah dari rumah? Digital bisa.
Saat ada kecoa, HP kreditan dihempas mertua. Ambil hikmahnya. Di Blibli Hikmah Ramadan. Bisa beli yang baru, dapat cashback hingga 1 juta rupiah untuk semua produk. Yuk, Blibli sekarang.